Welcome back to the Budding Author Podcast with me, Simon Ward, your host. Today we're going to be talking to Laura Frost, author of Upmarket Fiction. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Writing Battles of the Heart and Mind. How about that? So, first of all, tell me, what's the difference between upmarket fiction and normal fiction?
Upmarket fiction it's not quite commercial fiction and it's not quite literary fiction. It's sort of in between. A lot of people compare it to bookmark or book club fiction.
Okay.
So the type of things that book clubs would look for, where you have a nice balance between plot and character.
Okay. So maybe mine's upmarket fiction. I didn't even know.
Yeah, it is pretty wide ranging. There's a lot of things can be fit into upmarket fiction.
Yeah, I hadn't come across that before for some strange reason. A lot of what you do, we want to get onto your short stories and what's going on with that. But first of all, tell us how you got started with writing. What's sort of your history?
I've always enjoyed writing. Since I was a kid, I've written poetry and short stories. And then about 8 years ago, there was a fairly significant event in my life, something involving my husband and his job, and things are a little bit touch and go. And so I had a lot of emotions and in response to his situation, and I needed to get them out somehow. So I just created a fictional character who was in a similar situation to I was, and I started writing, and I wrote, and I ended up with my first novel. And I haven't stopped writing since. I'm now working on my fourth novel and just kind of getting everything out that was inside of me and creating all sorts of new adventures.
It's good that I think writing what you know and that sort of thing. I see from your website, Laura Frost Writes. You've been all over the place, haven't you? A tumbleweed Canadian.
Yeah.
Roots in a bustling city. Which city was that?
So I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta. And then from there, I've bounced around, lived in small farming communities and in the mountains. And now I'm on the other side of Canada in Ontario. So yeah, just a little bit touching all different parts of the country.
Canada is a place we haven't visited yet. Is that a good place for me to visit, Canada?
It's a fantastic place, but it's really big. So you have to figure out what you want, what you want from your visit, and then plan accordingly.
Yeah, I think sort of West Coast.
I've lived here my whole life, and I haven't seen all of it yet. So.
Got you. Okay, that sounds good. What were you doing work-wise before you started writing then, or have you always been into that you haven't been that long, have you really? So what was you doing before for a job?
So I actually have a degree in environmental sciences, and so I worked at Botanic Garden for a while, and then I did some field work, bird counts and plant surveys. And then with my husband's job, we started moving around a lot. And so I started taking up small jobs here and there. I worked in the hotel industry. I was a substitute teacher. I worked as a legal assistant for a lawyer. So I've done...
You've got quite a breadth of stuff. What does your husband do then, Laura?
He used to be a police officer, and now he's into business.
Got you. Okay. His own business, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was the police life. With the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, we move around a lot. It's similar to the military lifestyle, and that's why we're bouncing all over the place.
Got you. A Mountie then?
Yes.
I can imagine him now with his red jacket and his hat.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've still got that hanging in our closet.
And did you have a family, or you're not gone that way?
Oh, yes. We have 3 children. So they keep me super busy. They're the focus right now.
That's it. We have little challenges with the family that way. But the writing, a lot of your writing, as you say, has been poetry and short stories. Do you think you've gained more traction by doing short stories than novels?
Absolutely. Novels are my passion, but I've really enjoyed diving into the world of short stories, and I've found some success with getting my short stories published. Some short stories, they'll get picked up on the first submission, and others it'll be like 30 submissions and still not hearing anything. So it's a wide range, but yeah, I do find that for me anyway, it's a little bit easier to get into the publishing industry through short stories.
Yeah, I think I saw on your site you've got some magazines that you've been in.
Yes.
What's that one I was just glancing at earlier? Where's it gone? It's not going to appear for me now, is it? Mulbus Boulevard.
That was my most recent one, and that's more of a
Transition magazine. Is that just a Canadian publication? Is it?
Yeah, Transition magazine is based out of Saskatchewan, but it is a national magazine for mental health, and so that story is actually creative nonfiction. A little bit about my own personal mental health journey regarding one of the field jobs I had when I was bird watching, and how things turned a little bit took a bit of a downward turn while I was at that job.
Yeah, I think with your partner, as you say, being sort of a Mountie and that sort of thing, there must be some worries when they're back late and when they're involved in sort of serious incidents and things like that. So is writing a good release for you for sort of mental health challenges?
Absolutely. My first novel I wrote, it was a huge release. Got out, decades worth of stuff that I was holding inside. And ever since then, it's still therapeutic, but in a very different way. It's more day-to-day things that I'm reflecting on, and then I bring into my characters' lives.
So although it's fiction, it's sort of very sort of like not quite autobiographical, but I mean sort of to a point, you're touching on your own life experiences.
Right. Yeah. A lot of my stories that I write, I borrow from real life experiences, and then I ask the question, what if? What if something happened differently? What if I made, and then as an extension, this character made a different choice, and where could that potentially lead? And then that just blossoms into a whole new story.
Okay. Does some of it cross back over the other way, where you've made a decision in your writing that you should take that direction, and then you've thought with your own life, thinking, well, maybe I should have, I could change what I was doing based on the character's success, perhaps?
You know what? If sometimes I start thinking that way, I remind myself that I'm in a really great place in my life right now. I love where I am. And so even, the challenges I've had in my life, they've brought me to where I am today. So no regrets. I could be somewhere else right now and living a whole different life, but I appreciate where I am.
You're happy with your lot. That's it. I think it's good to reflect on an attitude of gratitude for life, because a lot of people struggle. I think everybody struggles in one way or another, but it's how you react and how you cope with that. And when you look at the problems other people have, sometimes you realize sort of how comfortable the comfort you've been afforded, as it were.
Absolutely.
With writing for me, I think one of my books, it sort of got me on a strain. I don't know whether I should talk about this really. We talk about a guy and he's unfaithful. He's unfaithful to his girlfriend, and he has a very bad experience because of that. The story's Time to Clip. It was actually my third novel that was fitted into, became the first of the series after like a prequel sort of thing. But yeah, he had some tortures. So I think anybody who reads that will never stray and never be unfaithful to anyone. I think that's right. It's all fiction. It's all fiction. It's not based on personal experiences. I've been a very good lad, as they say. So what was the first publication that you got produced from short story? Tell me about that.
My first publication was a story called August 5th. and it was published for Page and Screen magazine. And it's about a woman who goes up to a mountaintop with her dog, and she has an urn full of ashes, and she's scattering the ashes to the wind. And after she does that and makes her peace, she tries to find her way off the mountain, but ends up getting turned around and gets lost.
Oh, a bit of an adventure kind of thing. How did you get into Page and Screen? What, did you just send your submission to them? Because quite often they want agents, and they want you have an agent before they'll accept a submission and that sort of thing. That's a frustrating thing for me at the moment.
Right. Yeah. With short stories, I find that's not as much of an issue. I'll submit to literary magazines, journals, anthologies, and for the most part, it doesn't seem to matter if you have an agent or not. And so, that's part of the reason I think why I've had success with my short stories is because I'm not agented. I can put these stories out, and it's, it doesn't matter that I'm not represented by somebody.
Yeah.
And so, for Page and Screen, it was just a submission that I saw was open, and they loved it, so they accepted it.
So have you had any more feedback from Page and Screen, maybe sort of taking something to a TV, for example?
No, not that. They did reach out and ask if I wanted to be on a podcast that they're putting together, similar to what you're doing, but focusing on writers they have published, and just having conversation about their writing journey, sort of a summer writers series they were doing. So that wasn't a new opportunity I got through that publication.
Yeah. But do they get involved with TV, as the name suggests?
I believe they do they accept some screenwriting stuff. I'm not sure how deep into the actual TV world they delve, or film and everything, but they do try to merge both film and writing through their website.
So it's more sort of more reflective rather than publishing house. In that respect.
I know they're a fairly new magazine or online journal when I was accepted, and I haven't recently gone back to see how they've grown since then. So they may have gone more into that film side of the world since. I'm not too sure.
Have you not had anything else done with them, or have you sort of ticked that one off as such?
I'm trying to build a wide range of publications that I appear in, and so I'm not opposed to submitting to a magazine or a publication that I've been in already. But if I can get somewhere new and get a wider reach, then I try to do that as well.
I think it's sort of. I think it's a balance, isn't it? I think reappearing somewhere will sort of maybe lift you up, but again, you want to sort of get a different audience, don't you? And
right.
Do you think that helped your novel sales from appearing in there?
Well, I haven't published my novels yet, but
you've got 4, haven't you? Yeah.
I've written 4, not yet published.
Got you holding off there. Yeah. Okay.
So working towards publication. But I know it's a long journey, and so if I can get my name out with some of these short story publications, then hopefully down the road that does help with novel sales.
Give you a bit of a traction lift.
Right.
So from the novel's perspective against the short stories, is your process very similar, or the short stories sort of just a go and attack, and the novel's something different? Tell me what your process is.
Yeah, usually my short stories, they're sort of a breather in between stages of a novel, right? When I'm writing a novel. So if I'm, I finish my first draft of a novel, I'm like, okay, I need a break from this. Then I might go write a short story or 2.
Okay.
And because of the length of them, they just naturally don't take as long to write. So I will attack them, and then edits are happen very quickly because I only have so many words to work with. So once I write 1 or 2 short stories, then, my brain is sort of refreshed, and I can go back and do draft 2 of my novel.
Yeah. I think I find with short stories, edit those far more than you would do your novel chapter, for example, because every word is so much more important.
It really depends on the story and also where I'm submitting them to. If I'm specifically submitting to a place with a word count cutoff, I need to be very aware of my word count. So recently, my latest short story I wrote, I needed 750 words, no more. And
that's quite tight,
so I wrote a story that was like 1,500 words. I'm like, okay, how do I pare this down? So editing was a lot trickier. I really had to focus on what was the necessary parts of the story and what I could do away with. And then I got down to like 900 words or something. Like, okay, 150 words. Where are you? Which ones can I take out? And then it's like using a fine-tooth comb to just figure out what word here and there. And it's a slow process, but you can pick out words and eventually get down to that 750 mark.
Yeah, I think with a short story, it's the essence, isn't it, between a short story and a novel. In a short story, perhaps you wouldn't describe the wallpaper and the pictures on the wall in the same way. I'm sort of in the middle, really, because a lot of my writing is quite fast-paced, so I don't sort of go into too heavy, detailed descriptions. Where would you stand on that?
I agree with you. Definitely short stories, I don't have as much description. Novels, originally when I was writing my novels, I didn't have a ton of description. I was just, let's go for plot and, what's going on in the internal environment of the characters. But one of my beta readers said, I feel kind of lost at the beginning of chapters sometimes because I'm not grounded to the setting. So, I looked at my chapters again and I started this process of, okay, let's sort of describe the setting when I first enter the room in a chapter, and not necessarily in detail of, describing a room, but just more bringing the senses of where you are and the feeling that the setting has.
Yeah, the ambience of the room and the vibe,
exactly.
The vibe effectively. Yeah, it's a challenge really to sort of get that right, isn't it? Mm-hmm. The sort of the description, exposition against the action, because you've got to keep people. As I think I had Jo Paulson on recently, and she was saying you can't bury the lead. You've got to keep the focus on the plot lines. And I guess with the novel, you can explore more characters, where with the short story, I think probably limited to 2, would you say, or more?
Yes. One of my short stories, when I wrote it, it had a whole bunch of characters because it was in a school setting. So just naturally, there's a lot of people around. And I found in the small space of a short story, it was just way too many people. So I tried to combine characters. So instead of having 2 people doing one thing, it was pared down to 1 person.
Yeah.
And even then I started pulling characters out, and I'm like, how can I bring it down to just 1 or 2 main characters? And then of course there's the odd person on the side. But again, it was a bit more of a focus of trying to pare it down a lot.
Yeah, I think particularly in a school setting, you've got lots of different voices, but you don't necessarily need to sort of give a description for every voice. For example, like Rachel commented, "What are you still doing here?" sort of thing. But if Rachel's not important to the story, you wouldn't describe Rachel other than saying, "Oh, the typically bullshit Rachel," as had been the only description, really. Rather than sort of Rachel, the brunette who joined from Saskatchewan sort of 5 years ago, sort of thing. Like, and I suppose that's our guidance to a reader, really. When you give a little bit more description, that's telling you that they are a bit more important to the story.
Exactly. And I've started not using names for characters unless they are important pieces of the story. So if Rachel is just this girl in the corner who says one line in the whole story, I don't necessarily even give her the name Rachel. I just say the girl in the third row, or maybe not even that. Just you just know somebody said this line, and then you move on.
Yeah, I was reading something recently. It was a critique I was doing on Scriberfile. I don't know whether you've come across Scriberfile. And they've got different voices, but they didn't explain what the context of the voice coming across.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of something that I'd sort of picked up on. I think some, like potentially with Scriberfile, where you're not sort of particularly reading from the very first chapter and you're just picking it up, you sort of need that context.
For sure.
With your reading, when you're reading, do you read sort of like for an hour at a time, or are you sort of like just a bitty kind of reader?
It really depends on how much time I have available in the moment. If I have an hour or two available and I'm really engaged in the story, then I will sit and read for a long time. But sometimes it's just 15 minutes while I'm sitting in a doctor's office or something, and then that's what I have available to me.
Yeah, some of my readers, I'll release a book and they say, "Oh yeah, I read it in one sitting," and it's like, what? It's like, so now I just read the whole lot, and it was like, it took me like 7 hours or something like that. It's like,
I need to get up and stretch.
I couldn't do that. I struggle to, like, I think probably an hour is probably my limit really, but quite often I sort of read late at night or early in the morning. So I can't sort of read hours at a time. But it's quite a compliment, isn't it, when somebody sort of like, I couldn't put it down, I just had to read the lot. That's
absolutely.
I could just do with a few thousand more. So who's the biggest champion for your writing?
That would be my husband.
Does he check over all your work, does he, before it goes to editing? Or?
Yeah, he's my first reader. He's my first editor. He'll pick up all sorts of plot holes or grammatical errors that I've missed. So he's awesome for that. And he shares some ideas. Like if I'm stuck, I'll sort of give him an idea. I don't want to give him spoilers because he wants to go into my stories blind, but I'll give him an idea what I'm doing. I'll say, I just don't know how to get, from this point to this point. And then we can sort of brainstorm a bit. And on those days where I think it's all hopeless and this story will never see the light of day, he will always cheer me on, even when I have stopped cheering myself on because I'm having a bad day. So he's definitely my biggest fan.
That's nice. I think just going back briefly, we were talking about characters and that. I'm not sure whether this is something that you've done, but a character that's not particularly key to the story, on occasions I will give them a wider description to sort of as a bit of a red herring sort of thing. Would you do something like that, or are you played straighter bat than that?
You know what? That's a really interesting idea. I don't know if I've ever done that. Sometimes I surprise myself with what I write. The world disappears and I just start writing. And before I know it, I'm done a few pages and I'm like, oh, I wonder what I just wrote. And when I go back over it, I see some of these really nuanced ideas that, came from somewhere inside of me. And sometimes I get these really neat symbolic things and something possibly like what you're describing, just to sort of shift the focus a little bit or give a little red herring or whatever. So I can't say I'm necessarily intentionally doing that, but sometimes it does come across.
I think my favorite, of all the different scenarios I've done, I think I won't say which book it was because that might spoil things, but a double twist. A double twist is always quite good. You're like a fiendish little giggle behind it as you it was it just came to me that I was writing it, and it was like I was building it up to a certain scenario, and then it was like, well, how about if that wasn't the case? And then so I switched it round and had that sort of twist, and then switched it back again for a double twist. And it brought tears to my eyes, really, when I was reading it after. It's sort of quite an emotional journey. We do get caught up with our characters, don't we?
Oh, for sure. They become real people.
Yeah, and it's and I went to a book club recently, and people were mentioned one of my characters, saying they thought she was a little bit shallow, and then someone else at the book club said, "No, she's not." And then they were arguing over it. It was, which is quite good, I think.
Oh, that's great. Good. Yeah, I've had beta readers come back to ask me things about my characters. They're like, "Oh, so did your character think this?" And it's brilliant. And I'm like, well, no, that wasn't my intent while I was writing the character, but I can totally see what you mean. And when I look at it from that perspective, it's, the character has this whole other side that I never even thought of, but my readers have seen that.
Yeah. I think I need to get back to more short stories, because I did a short story in a short story competition for Readsy. And after for a while, it was a while after, and I got an email from a school teacher, and she asked if I'd answer some questions that the children had, because they'd taken my writing, my short story, and they'd sort of studied the story. Yeah, it was just one of my short stories. It was only sort of like something I'd just sort of thrown together, really. But it was sort of, they're asking about the character and what the character thought and what happened to the character after, and that sort of thing. And it's like,
that's so great.
But it's I don't know whether it was that bad that they'd use that to give it the children to assess. I don't know. Let's hope it wasn't. I don't think it was that. That wasn't the tone. The tone wasn't as such. Mouse, do you do all your own editing then, or do you send it out for professional editing?
As of right now, I do my own editing, but with my novels, I do plan on using a professional editor. If I end up going traditional publishing, then the assumption is that they provide an editor for me. If I end up self-publishing, then I will find an editor, but I'm very confident with my own editing. But even with that, it's so great to get another perspective, outside eyes.
That's important. I think whether people go for professional editing or not, having other people look at your work and other people that you can trust to look at it and not just say, "Oh yeah, that was lovely, carry on," sort of thing. That's better. And have you come across Scriberfile before?
No, I have not.
Scriberfile, it's a community of beta readers, effectively. So I will go on Scriberfile and I will do some critique for someone, and I'll gain points from doing that. And then I use those points when people critique my work. So it's like a big writing group, really.
Right.
So I found that good. I haven't actually put my own work into it yet. I'm only sort of quite new to it. Dylan West introduced me to it, and the power of editing other people's work and how much it helps your own editing is huge.
Oh, for sure.
And can't Absolutely. Be sort of underestimated. And I've had positive comments back from my critique, so I think maybe I should have pedal myself as an editor at some point, I think. But it's good. So tell me a little bit, we've only got a couple of minutes. Your guilty pleasure, I think that's baking, isn't it?
Yes, I love to bake.
What kind of things do you bake, Laura?
I will bake pretty much anything. I like simple things, like, just throw a batch of cookies in the oven. I also like to take on some more challenging projects. I made baklava last summer and it turned out fantastic.
Yeah,
the Greek dessert. And, But what I've been doing for quite a while is pie of the month. So I have a pie book, and once a month I will randomly select a page, and whatever pie it comes up on, I will bake that pie. And so I think I've done about close to 200 pies now, all different ones. And some of them are fantastic and some of them are really terrible. I'll have one slice, one bite, and the rest goes in the trash because they're just so horrible. But it's fun to make.
Is this meat pies or sweet pies?
Sweet pies.
Sweet pies. Okay, yeah. So normally, if I buy something that's a little bit different and it doesn't go down very well, my wife lets me finish it.
Oh yeah.
it's all down to me to finish it then. So that's good. And Laura, this has been absolutely superb. It's been great talking to you. I think short stories are perhaps overlooked, and I think more people should go into short stories to help develop their craft for writing tight dialogue. Particularly, I'm very sharp on dialogue. There's so much dialogue that I read that sort of, it's just so sloppy. So that's a good thing for short stories. Your dialogue has to be sort of absolutely crystal clear, tight, and real. And that's,
for sure.
Yeah, but that's been really good. Thanks. We better go. We've over allotted time that I'll give myself. But
well, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
No, it's been great. It's been great. Nice one. Thanks, Laura. Thank you. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, and comment. We want to hear your comments, don't we? That's what we want to hear.